It's called voluntary simplicity because we, as Americans, have a choice. We can continue to live by world standards, really quite extravagantly, or we can choose to live more simply. If we vow to use only our fair share of the Earth's resources, that means we have to make a major change in the way we live. Hi, I'm Gerald Iversen, National Coordinator of Alternatives for Simple Living since about 1995. Alternatives for Simple Living is a national nonprofit organization, been around since 1973. It was first a protest against the commercialization of Christmas, but has over the years developed into promoting voluntary simplicity year-round. It's called voluntary simplicity because we, as Americans, have a choice. We can continue to live by world standards, really quite extravagantly, or we can choose to live more simply. Voluntary simplicity is based on 5 life standards. The first one is do justice. And for us, that means pledging and striving to use only our fair share of the Earth's resources. Of course, in the world today, 20% of the people, over 1 billion people, scarcely know where their next meal is coming from. 60% of the world lives simply but eats regularly. And the other 20%, the people we fondly call the privileged people of the earth, they have plenty to eat, more clothes than they know what to do with. They have good medical care, and they get to drive their own cars. And of course, that 20% is us. And so on an average day, the first 80% of the world's population uses 20% of the Earth's resources, and we, that is virtually everyone in the US, Canada, Western Europe, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia, use 80% of the Earth's resources. So, if we vow to use only our fair share of the Earth's resources, that means we have to make a major change in the way we live. Not only an attitude change, but in actually how we do it. The second life standard is learn from the world community. And that means that maybe we don't know everything there is to know about everything. That there's a lot that we can learn from the non-industrial world. We can learn about family relationships. We can learn about music from people that we used to call witch doctors. We urge people to get out of the house. That is, to go visit other places. Because we find that when people visit the non-industrial world, whether it's going to Haiti or Africa or building houses in Tijuana, people come back and they're much more open to simpler living. Because now they have something to compare themselves with besides their own neighbors. The third life standard is cherish the natural order, which is basically care for the earth. And, recycling is important. We have a nice recycling program here, but it's really pretty much irrelevant if we don't take the next step, which is to use products made of recycled materials, to close the loop. The fourth life standard is nurture people, not things. We are world-class nurturers of things. Many of us will go into debt to get this precious object. We'll dust that thing for decades. Then we'll rent storage units so nobody steals our precious stuff. But on the other hand, a recent statistic that was very unsettling to me was that here in the U.S., now on an average day, an average dad spends with the average kid 3 minutes of meaningful time a day. And so we're encouraging families to take a pledge that they will not allow sports, they won't allow schools, they won't allow the church to keep the family from having 5 meals a week together. Now, for us that are over 50, we remember a time when education happened in the household around the table, where values were passed from one generation to the next at the table. So we're trying to help make that happen again. The fifth life standard is non-conform freely. Non-conform freely may sound like something out of the hippie era, but actually it's not. It's about developing resistance, and in our case, spiritual resistance, to commercial messages that try to get us to buy things we don't need. On an average day, the average American is exposed to 16,000 commercial hits a day. And so we are swimming in this commercial soup. So out of this setting comes little old Alternatives for Simple Living, with our mission, which is threefold: to equip people of faith to, first of all, challenge consumerism. Consumerism, that's our national religion that tells us we will find happiness and meaning in life through stuff. And we say, no, thank you very much. You will find happiness and meaning in life through relationships. Getting to know yourself honestly, relationships with your friends, and hopefully with some brothers and sisters around the world, relationship with the earth, and of course, most importantly, our relationship with God. That's where we'll find meaning and happiness in life. Things always disappoint in the long run, even though they give us a rush when we first get them. So, that's the first part. Equipping people of faith should challenge consumerism. The next is to live justly. Now, we need to make a distinction between justice and charity, because sometimes we get those mixed up. Charity is when we give our time and our money to help meet other people's short-term needs and to work for worthy causes. Very important. But it's not working for justice. Working for justice is when we strive to change a system that makes charity necessary. And there are three ways to do that. First of all is to work to change government policies. And I've heard a rumor there are a few that could use changing. The second is to change corporate policies. And that means both applauding corporations that are doing good, but boycotting corporations that continue to gobble up our earth. And the third is, of course, seeing ourselves and our own lifestyles as part of that system. Because everything is connected. Our buying decisions have an impact on people around the world. So that's the second part. The third part is challenging people of faith to celebrate responsibly. The average American wedding now costs $27,850. So we try to give people an attitude adjustment and nuts and bolts ideas about how to do things more simply. For example, people say to me, they say, but you want simple living and you use computers. I say, you bet we use computers. We're not Luddites. We're not trying to crash the technology. We're trying to use the technology to promote a very important message. We're not trying to alienate ourselves from society. We're just resisting the commercial messages that tell us we have to buy things we don't need. That's the important thing, is things we don't need. And in the midst, we also learn the difference between needs and wants.